More Twitter files, this time about Russiagate, or the Russia hoax. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is another declaration of truth from your host, Terry A. Hurlbut. Yesterday morning, Pacific time, reporter Matt Taibbi released Twitter Files Part 14. It tells how some of our elected officials took an active role in spreading official government disinformation to the people. This is Russiagate, selling the notion that a sitting president was in fact an agent of an external enemy, and also the notion that a certain foreign power was that external enemy. You have heard me call that ideological corruption. Corruption not primarily for anyone's pecuniary benefit, though that might be part of it, especially with a venal shakedown artist like Hillary Rodham Clinton, but for the low, cunning, and dangerous purpose of establishing and maintaining tyranny. This is worse than having rogue three-letter agencies breathing down your neck. We are talking about offenses by legislators that rate expulsion from the House of Representatives and especially the Senate. Twitter's role in this affair is bad enough, but I condemn more strongly those who gave Twitter their orders. Before I get to this further, I do want to shout out the prime sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views. Link in the description. And be sure to check out the awesome CNAV Store. Scroll down near the bottom for that link. Lots of great merchandise there, especially this t-shirt that I have chosen for today, which reads, 1984 was not an instruction manual. Well, evidently, to 3 members of Congress, 2 of them senators, it was and is. One more thing. If you like what you're about to hear, you can like this video. You can also click the bell icon to get a notice every time I come out with a new one. In fact, do you see the new icon, the heart shape with the US dollar sign in it? That's the super thanks icon. If you really want to keep these videos coming, click that and leave me a tip. Scroll down near the bottom for that link. Leave a tip. Any currency will do, so long as it's legal tender. First, some background. Hillary Rodham Clinton, as part of her campaign, prevailed upon someone, maybe President Obama, maybe his Attorney General, to promote a narrative that her opponent, Donald J. Trump, was taking instruction, even by a secret radio, shades of the paranoid 50s and 60s, from Russian intelligence. This ideological corruption extended to her law firm, Perkins, Coie, and one of its senior associates, Michael Sussman. The sheer ugliness of that episode prompted Elon Musk to denounce that firm and suggested no person of good heart should ever retain them. I have a link in the description to Musk's tweet dated December 8th, 2022, saying specifically, Twitter does not use Perkins Coie, and no one should until Michael Sussman makes amends for attempting to sway an election. But did Elon know more than he cared to share in one brief tweet? Certainly he did not expand upon that in a detailed thread, but Matt Taibbi now has. Of course, Russiagate goes far beyond a law firm. As I say, we are talking about members of the highest deliberative body in the land, and at least one member of what is supposed to be the People's House. I have links in the description, as ever, to every other tweet. If you click through, you will see many embedded documents, emails, articles, and similar supporting information. And now, here it is. Thread, Twitter Files Part 14, The Russiagate Lies. 1. The fake tale of Russian bots and the Release the Memo hashtag. Right away you know there's more to come on that subject. To continue. At a crucial moment in a year-long furor, Democrats denounced a report about flaws in the Trump-Russia investigation, saying it was boosted by Russian bots and trolls. Twitter officials were aghast, finding no evidence of Russian influence. We see Twitter staff saying things like, We are feeding congressional trolls, not any significant activity connected to Russia, and putting the cart before the horse, assuming this is propaganda/bots. Twitter warns public politicians and media. They not only lacked evidence, but they had evidence the accounts weren't Russian and were roundly ignored. On January 18, 2018, Republican Devin Nunes submitted a classified memo to the House Intelligence Committee detailing abuses by the FBI in obtaining FISA surveillance authority against Trump-connected figures, including the crucial role played by the infamous Steele dossier. The Nunes assertions would virtually all be verified in a report by Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz in December 2019. Nonetheless, national media in January and early February of 2018 denounced the Nunes report in oddly identical language, calling it a joke. On January 23, 2018, Senator Dianne Feinstein of California and Congressman Adam Schiff, also of California, published an open letter saying the hashtag gained the immediate attention and assistance of social media accounts linked to Russian influence operations, close quote. Now, if you click through to the image, you'll see that they addressed their letter to Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg both. Feinstein and Schiff said the Nunes memo distorts classified information, but note, they didn't call it incorrect. Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal followed suit, publishing a letter saying, again, quote, "We find it reprehensible that Russian agents have so eagerly manipulated innocent Americans," unquote, Richard Blumenthal. Feinstein, Schiff, Blumenthal, and media members all pointed to the same source, the Hamilton 68 dashboard created by former FBI counterintelligence official Clint Watts under the auspices of the Alliance for Securing Democracy, or ASD. The dashboard, which featured a crude picture of Vladimir Putin deviously blowing evil red Twitter birds into the atmosphere, was vague in how it reached its conclusions. Inside Twitter, executives panned Watts, Hamilton 68, and the Alliance for Securing Democracy. Two key complaints. Hamilton 68 seemed to be everyone's only source, and no one was checking with Twitter. Quote, "I encourage you to be skeptical of Hamilton 68's take on this, which as far as I can tell is the only source of these articles," unquote, Global Policy Communications Chief and future White House and NSC spokesperson Emily Horn. She added, quote, "It's a cosplay for ASD," close quote. Quote, "All the swirl is based on Hamilton," unquote, Trust and Safety Chief Yoel Roth. Quote, "If ASD isn't going to fact check with us, we should feel free to correct the record on their work," unquote, Policy Vice President Carlos Monye. Roth couldn't find any Russian connection to release the memo at all. "I just reviewed the accounts that posted the first 50 tweets with release the memo, and none of them show any signs of affiliation to Russia. We investigated, found that engagement is overwhelmingly organic and driven by VITs, that's very important tweeters, including WikiLeaks and Congressman Steve King. A staffer for DiFi, Feinstein, agreed it would be helpful to know how Hamilton 68 goes by the process by which they decide an account is Russian, but only after Feinstein published her letter about Russian influence. When Twitter spoke to a Blumenthal staffer, they tried to wave him off because "we don't believe these are bots." Added another, "It might be worth nudging Blumenthal's staffer that it could be in his boss's best interest not to go out there because he could come back to make him look silly." One Twitter exec even tried to negotiate, implying an undisclosed future PR concession if Blumenthal would lay off on this. "It seems like there are other wins we could offer him." Blumenthal published his letter anyway. Execs eventually grew frustrated over what they saw as a circular process, presented with claims of Russian activity, even when denied, led to more claims. They expressed this explicitly to Blumenthal's camp, saying, Twitter spent a lot of resources on this request, and the reward from Blumenthal shouldn't be round after round of requests. We can't do a user notice each time this happens. Eventually, Twitter staff realized Blumenthal isn't looking for real and nuanced solutions, but just wants to get credit for pushing us further. And just how much further those two senators and that representative would end up push Twitter, I'm going to describe. But first, I want to shout out to a sponsor who can really help you through the economic storms to come. That sponsor is oursilverlines.com. Do you feel like you are working harder for your money just to get by? You are not alone. The fluctuating economy, employment issues, and unexpected changes in life have left many families struggling over the past few years. Collecting gold and silver can help shield you against many of these challenges. But if you're like me many years ago, you don't know where or how to start. Our Silver Lines helps by connecting you with thousands of members who are learning the secrets to creating and protecting true wealth by collecting precious metals. Now, whether you just want to collect rare and unique coins or take advantage of the business opportunities this company provides, either way, they can help you learn to live an exceptional life. Visit oursilverlines.com to learn how you can build a legacy for your future. Now, to continue. Ultimately, senior executives talked about feeding congressional trolls and compared the situation to the children's book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. Now, in that story, if you give a mouse a cookie, he'll want a glass of milk, which will lead to a wave of other exhausting requests, at the end of which he'll want a glass of milk and one more cookie. The metaphor for the endless rush of requests was so perfect. One exec wrote, "I'm legitimately embarrassed that I didn't think of that first." Despite universal internal conviction that there were no Russians in the story, Twitter went on to follow a slavish pattern of not challenging Russia claims on the record. Outside counsel from DC-connected firms like DB Voice and Plimpton advised Twitter to use language like, "With respect to particular hashtags, we take seriously any activity that may represent an abuse of our platform." As a result, reporters from the AP to Politico to NBC to Rolling Stone continue to hammer the Russian bots theme despite a total lack of evidence. Russians weren't just playing for release the memo, but Schumer shutdown, Parkland shooting, even gun control now, to widen the divide, according to the New York Times. And about Schumer shutdown and release the memo, the internal guidance was, both hashtags appear to be organically trending. NBC, Politico, AP, Times, Business Insider, and other media outlets who played up the Russian bot story, even Rolling Stone, all declined to comment for this story. The staffs of Feinstein, Schiff, and Blumenthal also declined comment. Who did comment? Devin Nunes. Quote, "Schiff and the Democrats falsely claimed Russians were behind the release of memo hashtag. All my investigative work. By spreading the Russia collusion hoax, they instigated one of the greatest outbursts of mass delusion in U.S. history," unquote, Devin Nunes. This Release the Memo episode is just one of many in the Twitter files. The Russiagate scandal was built on the craven dishonesty of politicians and reporters who for years ignored the absence of data to fictional scare headlines. For more, watch Mike Schellenberger, Barry Weiss, Lee Fang, David Zweig, Alex Berenson, and more. Read my Substack page, link in the tweet, for more on why America needs truth and reconciliation on Russiagate. Twitter had no editorial input in the story. Searches were carried out by third parties, so the documents could be limited. End of thread. Did you catch that phrase, truth and reconciliation? You know what it reminds me of? Two commissions by that name, one in Canada, one in South Africa. Both commissions deal with legacies of human rights violations by the dominant group against a disfavored group. These groups were Canada's First Nations and South Africa's Xhosas, Zulus, and other black tribal nations. If that was the metaphor Matt Taibbi intended to use, those come close to fighting words. But in my opinion, this situation calls for that precise metaphor. What kind of senators are Feinstein and Blumenthal? And what kind of representative is Schiff to order a common communications carrier to take part in such disinformation? Twitter executives tried to tell them in effect that they were building mountains from molehills. No matter. Those two senators and that one representative had made up their minds. So did several legacy media outlets, including at least one partner in the Beanz Trusted News Initiative. That, of course, is already the subject of a lawsuit of its own, as I covered yesterday. At least one user, Tracy Beanz, reminded everyone of a thread she herself had published concerning Missouri versus Biden. I have a link in the description to the first tweet in her thread. It mainly covers certain court filings and the ruling involving the deposition of Jen Psaki in that case. Other users have called for prosecution of the persons Taibbi named in his thread. Because two of them are senators and one a representative, that would require the filing of ethics complaints. The Constitution tells us that each chamber of Congress, and only that chamber, may discipline or expel members of that chamber. Article 1, Section 5, Clause 2. Other users conclude, as Taibbi must have, that Russiagate was all a lie. To that, another user made this reply, to which I also have a link in the description. Quote, "Yep, this is why they are all crying about Musk taking over Twitter. Fear of exposure. Democrats have been lying to everyone for years about Russia, and now we are on the brink of World War III." Unquote, Chris Wenstra. And I agree. Democrats have been lying to everyone for years about Russia. The lies began shortly after the Russians renounced communism and adopted civilizational values. Still another user compared Russiagate to the filing of a false police report. I have a link to that also in the description. Quote, "So I can go to jail for falsifying a police report, but Adam Schiff and the Democrats suffer no consequence for fabricating a story to take down the President of the United States?" Close quote. Actually, Adam Schiff's offense might be worse. This user is talking about misprision of a felony. Senators Feinstein and Blumenthal and Representative Schiff engaged in misprision of acts of war. Misprision means talking about something happening that didn't. And who are Alliance for Securing Democracy anyway? On their homepage, they display their sympathies clearly. They show a Ukrainian flag flying taller than a U.S. flag on one side and an EU flag on the other. Furthermore, they are an explicit arm of something called the German Marshall Fund, which has existed for 50 years, and they tie themselves to the plan for European nation rebuilding associated with General George C. Marshall, the Marshall Plan. Well, clearly, they are a globalist group. Now, how long they've been advocating for Ukraine is less clear. I have links in the description of both organizations so that you can know whom I'm talking about. This much is clear, if nothing else. Congress is shot through with ideological corruption. It would be too easy to suggest that Russiagate started with a president certain politicians and civil servants did not like. The Western transnational deep state considers Russia its own declared enemy, and perhaps they have good reason for that. Good to them, but not so good to the American people. Donald Trump tried to expose the darkness among those charged with our country's defense. And they turned on him. But worse than that, members of Congress also turned on the president and bullied 2 social media outlets into helping them. Recall that Di-Fi addressed her open letter to Mark Zuckerberg as well as Jack Dorsey. Since becoming Speaker of the House, Representative Kevin McCarthy, also of California, has removed Representative Schiff from his committee assignments. He should be filing a complaint with the House Committee on Standards of Official Conduct, the Ethics Committee. I urge all Americans within the sound of my voice to call their representatives to recommend an ethics complaint against Schiff. And while you're at it, call your senators to urge ethics complaints against Senators Feinstein and Blumenthal for misprision of acts of war, misprision of treason, abridging the freedom of speech, and bringing this country close to a war with a power armed with hypersonic missiles. Those 3 rate expulsion from their respective houses of Congress. That applies to everyone else involved in this treason, for which they should all stand trial. Matt Taibbi and his colleagues are witnesses. Links to the description of the article, to Elon's tweet condemning Perkins Coie, to the thread, to the start of Tracy Beanz' thread on Missouri versus Biden, to Chris Wenstra's tweet about Democrats' fear of exposure and the war danger, to the tweet comparing Russiagate to the filing of a false police report, to my Declarations of Truth Twitter account, and to Conservative News and Views. I've also left links to the awesome CNAV Store and to oursilverlines.com, as I also mentioned. You know already about how to like a video, turn on notifications, and leave a tip. On the end screen, I'm going to leave a subscribe link to my channel and links to my Twitter Files playlist, my video about media being state actors, and a video by Jeremy at the Quartering giving his opinion on Twitter Files 14. This is Terry A. Hurlbut delivering another declaration of truth and reminding you to let the truth set you free.